Let's get started with today's episode. Our special guest is Andrew Fairbairn. As a below knee amputee, Andrew brings a unique perspective to disability, having borne disability sector experience and lived experience of disabilities. Andrew has a passion to see people with disability achieve their goals and dreams, however big or small, and says life should revolve around opportunities. Andrew is a passionate jazz musician and currently plays in two bands. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your amazing story.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me. I'm not sure if you're aware. I actually live in Perth, so it's really quite early in the morning here.
Oh, it is very early, so
Yeah.
thank you for jumping up and
No, that's all right. That's all right. It's
joining us.
one of the issues of working in this industry is it's very a lot of it's very East Coast centric. So living and working in Western Australia, I could be online at 5:30 in the morning here for meetings on the East Coast at 8:30. So it's all good. I'm happy to be here. And because it's summer, the sun comes up at 5 o'clock in the morning anyway. So uh, I can't sleep through
Beautiful.
that.
You've got the whole day ahead of
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it turns into long days, especially when it's really, really hot. That's all right. It's all
Absolutely.
good.
Can you tell me about how you became a below knee amputee?
Oh, look, yeah, that's a great story. I'm actually coming up on my 10th anniversary in March next year. I beg your pardon, February. I um I was hit by a truck when I was a very young man. I was like 12 years old, and it damaged my ankle, my left ankle. And over the years, it became a lot worse. And back then, I'm 55 years old, so that was a long time ago. Um, there wasn't a lot of stuff that they could do with it, just set it, and it's sort of like a set and forget. But as I got older, got heavier, I my foot started to um, club up, and I ended up getting a blister that got infected. And over a period of the next 10 years of that, there was in and out of surgery trying to clean it up and fix it up. And I ended up seeing an orthopedic surgeon who said to me, what I can do is I can take out the bones in your foot, which were all broken, by the way, because I ended up with osteomyelitis, which actually ate the bones away in my foot. And he said to me, I can take all the bones out and I can put titanium in there. So I immediately went to Terminator, the Arnold
Yep,
Schwarzenegger film with that foot that he's got.
yep.
And and I said to the surgeon, I said, well, what are the chances of me being able to walk again if I have that done? Due to infection and all that sort of stuff. And bear in mind, I'd already had 10 years worth of infection. So, um, he said to me, oh, maybe like 35%, 40%. And I thought, oh gosh, that's not a real good set of odds. So I said, well, I'm going to go and seek some more opinions and find out some more stuff. I was working at that time for an organization called Edge, which was a disability employment service. And I got talking to this older gentleman at lunch one day, and it turns out he was an above knee amputee and had been for 45 years. So, and it also turned out that he was a psychotherapist by trade. So we got chatting about amputations and stuff like that. And he got to know me. We got to know each other. We ended up doing quite a bit of work together. And he said to me, like, if you decide to go down this road of having the amputation done, I'd be more than happy to work with you and your family to make sure that they understand what you're actually going to do. Um, so it all came to a head in 2015, and it was Australia Day. So you can imagine, I'll paint a picture for you. Australia Day, January 26th in Perth. You can imagine the weather, beautiful weather. Everybody's out doing what they do on Australia Day. And my vascular surgeon comes into the I'm in hospital again on an IV antibiotic, trying to kill this infection in my foot. My vascular surgeon came in and he was dressed in board shorts, a singlet, and a pair of thongs. And I'm not very proud of this, but I lost it. I was like, dude, this is just not cool at all. And I said to him, well, look, if you don't take it off this time, I said, I'm going to check myself out. I'll go home. I will go out to my shed and I'll grab my angle grinder and I'll cut it off myself. I'll be back for you to fix it up tomorrow. I was in an immense amount of pain. I was self-medicating anything I could get my hands on. My head was in a really bad space. So he then decided, yep, we'll do it. And then on the 15th of February, I had my amputation done. Um, Funnily enough, it takes about 55 minutes to take a leg off. So it's not exactly a long surgery. And then I spent 4 days in hospital. Then I came home and got on with life from there. So it's I put it down to doing my own research and then having someone in my corner who was able to help me walk through it. That got me then involved with a lot of other amputee organizations around the world. And one in particular that stood out to me was an organization called Limbs for Life, which is based in Melbourne. And they're the Australian national peak for amputees in Australia. So I got to meet the CEO. Her name's Melissa Noonan. She's also an amputee. And I got to meet her, and then we started talking. And over the years, we've developed a really, really close relationship to the point where she was looking at a project in Western Australia and needed an amputee to run it. So she actually asked me if I'd come and work for her. And I've been working for her contractually on and off for the last, oh gosh, probably 7 years. And yeah, so it was a completely changed my life completely. There was no, and it wasn't like a slow change. It was like one day you're this, the next day you're that. So
But you really had probably 10 years lead up to that point
yeah,
where you decided that enough was enough.
yep. Oh
And
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You get to the point where you can't like pain is very real. Um, and when you can't walk at all, it becomes everything. It's all encompassing, and there's nothing that I could not do anything to get rid of it and to manage it. It was just constant 24 hours a day. Um, so it was you don't wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to go and have my leg chopped off. It was a really, really tough decision to make.
had you thought about that before you met this friend who
Yeah.
who you had thought about it?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I suppose I knew where it was going, and having like at that time I've been working in the disability industry for about 25 years now. So I had a lot of experience prior to the amputation, but as an able-bodied person, and I'd obviously met a few amputees as well. I'd met some that were ambulant and could walk, and I met quite a few who are full-time wheelchair users. So it wasn't. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but it was the right thing to do, I suppose. I had no quality of life at all. I mean, when you're living in pain 24 hours a day, with no prospect of it actually going away, that was the only way I could do it.
And I don't think people really understand.
Excuse me one second. This is my nurse. Good morning. You're speaking to Andrew.
I'm just going to pause the recording while Andrew finishes the phone call. All right, we'll restart now. We were talking about, Andrew, I don't think anyone really appreciates how down and all-encompassing chronic pain is when you
Yeah.
don't thin out. So I think you get to a point where there is actually no choice,
Yeah.
whether you have the amputation or not.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. You can go. You, uh, Doctors love to pump you full of antibiotics and full of drugs and full of like morphine and pethidine and all that sort of stuff, but you can't live life like that. That's not quality of life. That's longevity of life, and it will keep you alive, and it'll keep the pain. It'll like completely deaden the pain, but you can't live like that.
no.
Life to me, I was 45 years old. Granted, very overweight, but I still have a lot of life left. So, you're going from someone who'd been in the military to not being able to walk at all. Um, I needed something. I needed to do something. And this was, even though it's drastic, it was the best thing that I ever did. It was the best decision I ever made, was
So
to do.
no regrets.
Oh, hell no. No, none. Not one. Not one. Not even when the phantom pain kicks in, and not even when there's days that I can't put my leg on. Um, the heat drives me. I can't handle this heat anymore. But no regrets at all, because I'm not in any pain anymore.
Yeah. Were there any dark times throughout that journey?
Oh, definitely. We had, between my wife and I, she was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was first diagnosed with this osteomyelitis. So we went through a whole bunch of stuff together, and it's the type of stuff that would break a relationship apart. And but we managed to work through all that, and I put that down to having access to a psychotherapist, um, who helped us to work through those things that we needed to work through personally, and then as a couple. And then obviously our kids are older, but they still have to come through that, like, this is not, it's permanent. What I've done is permanent. It's not going to grow back. Um, it's gone, and it's gone for good.
And that's an interesting point that you raise about your children and your wife. Did they go through some process, or did they have any say in whether or not you got rid of your leg?
I chose to have them involved in it, just for the simple fact of understanding, what I was going to do and why I needed to do it, which was more to the point of why I needed to do it. Um, they they've both, all three of them have been really, really good about it. We joke about it now, 10 years down the track, but going as you start on this journey, everything becomes new again. So, you know, you can't, it's not like you have to learn how to wake up and get out of bed in the morning. Which for 45 years I'd been doing that every day. Now I've got to do it differently, because I've got to wake up, then I've got to open my eyes, and then my body's got to wake up before I put my leg on, before I go and take my first step. Otherwise, I'm going to end up flat on my face. And I have, two or three times I've actually forgotten that I don't have a leg to stand on, and I have jumped out of bed and then gone straight over. That happens. I always tell new amputees now, it's not a matter of if you're going to fall, it's when.
Yeah.
Because it is just a way of, it's a fact of life for us. Trip hazards are just, they're there all the time. Interestingly, my extended family was a lot different. I suppose it really comes down to how people view themselves, and how understanding they are of their own self. Um, my parts of my family have walked away because they don't understand and don't want to understand why I did what I did, which has been a struggle. But there's enough people in my life who got it and understand it, and they're the ones that I want around me, because you need that positive rather than the negative. Um, I don't consider myself to be broken. Um, it's funny, we talk now about the world of being a person with a disability, or people with disabilities. Um, if I'm in my wheelchair, particularly if I can't wear my leg for whatever reason, environment disables me, not me. Not because I'm an amputee. It's because the environment's built wrong for someone like me. So it's an ongoing struggle all the way through. I always say to people, I'm 6'3", so I'm fairly tall, and but in my wheelchair, I might as well be 2 foot tall, because there's things that I just cannot access. Particularly if I want to go shopping and go to the freezers and get stuff out of the freezers, it's impossible from a wheelchair. So the environment actually disables us rather than we being disabled people.
That's a really interesting comment. And for all the interviews that I've done, with people with physical disabilities. That is the biggest issue they face. And they've all said the same thing. It's not their disability,
Yep.
it's the environment around them,
Yep.
which actually is so sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I think that like what we're doing here and talking about it, that starts to break down those biases and the perceptions of people have. I mean, people look at me and I know I can read it in their face. It's been long enough, and I've been in this industry long enough. You get that sense of that they're sad for me because I have to get out of bed and put a body part on before I can actually walk. But it's not like that at all. It's now after 10 years has been it's becomes it's my norm. And everybody who knows me knows that's my norm. They know they know what my leg looks like when they know who it is because they can see my leg and they go, oh, I know who that is because I
it's
wear
fine.
this is I've had this design. We're getting a good picture of that or not? Yeah, there you go. The spider webs has been a design I've had on my sockets for about 6 years. And the story behind that is that each strand of a spider web is very fragile and will break, and it will break really easily. But when a spider builds a web complete, it becomes very strong and it can catch pretty much anything, flies and cockroaches and stuff. So having them all interjoined that's our community. Like each person creates their own spider web because we're all very, very different. But when we come together as a community, that's unity and strength,
Yes.
and that becomes hard to break, because there's lots and lots and lots of us around Australia and around the world.
And I think a lot of it, when we are finding that people don't understand, it's because they haven't been assimilated with people with disabilities. They haven't seen it. They haven't dealt with it on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
a lot of them are actually scared.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, 100%, 100%. I have a really good working relationship with my sister's daughter, my niece, and she was only 6 years old when I had my amputation done. No, yeah, six. And I had to make sure, and I wanted to make sure that she understood that Uncle Andrew hadn't changed. He just had to have this gone. And now she's become a real good champion for people with physical disabilities because she's had me as a role model teacher to understand that yes, it is different, but it's not insurmountable difference, and don't walk away from it. I mean, like, I love little kids because they're so open, and and
Honestly,
especially because I've got all these like cool designs that I've had on my sockets and stuff, and it shows. I'm not ashamed of being an amputee. I don't own a pair of long pants at all. Everywhere I go is either shorts for work, and then for formal stuff I wear kilts, embracing my Scottish heritage. So it's out there all the time. But kids are amazing. Because kids got no filter. They'll just come up and they'll go, "Hey, mister, how'd you lose your leg? God, that's really good," stuff like that. But it's their parents who drag them away. Don't like, and it's like, hang on a second, whoa, whoa, wait, you're not going to catch it. It's not contagious. You know what I mean? It's like if we spend so much time trying to assimilate into society, and into an environment and a society that really is not for us. And then to have that happen as well, it's sort of heartbreaking. So I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing better than what we used to be. It's becoming more the norm to see more people with disabilities out and about. And that's a good thing. That's a real good thing.
absolutely. And that's one of the reasons for this podcast is we want to normalize
Yeah,
every single person in this world.
yeah, yeah.
Everyone's got something to give. Everyone's got potential to reach
Yep,
if they're given the right adjustments,
absolutely agree. Absolutely
the
agree.
right accommodation. So we want to
Yeah.
make it normal.
Yeah, and that goes across everything from education to housing to all basic human rights. That everybody is entitled to. The people with disabilities are no different. I do a lot of disability awareness training for organisations as part of a team that I work with here in Perth. And one of the things, and it's actually quite shocking when you think about it. The RSPCA, which is the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, right? That was enacted in the late 1800s. Right? So thinking about prevention of cruelty to animals. People with disabilities didn't have the Disability Discrimination Act until 1993. So animals were protected from the late 1800s, but people with disabilities were not protected until the late 1900s.
Pretty
So,
amazing, isn't it, when you
something,
put it like that?
yeah, something to think about, right? And it shocks people when you say that there was absolutely no right. We had no protection under right until that time.
And people would have no idea.
No,
Like that
not,
is a fact that you've just. I had no idea.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And it makes you stop and think. I think we have done well. Can we do better? Absolutely. We need to we need we need to see more people with disabilities in places of power. We need to see more people with disabilities in politics. For the first one, you know, in my life, I think I've only ever seen two full-time wheelchair users in politics. I'm talking like high-level politics. Um, and that's not, if we don't see ourselves in places, how are we ever going to get there? So it's changing that perception and bias of what people think people with disabilities can and can't do.
and that's a whole nother topic.
Absolutely.
In terms of
Yeah.
the NDIS
Oh
and
gosh.
the government.
We've only got an hour, right? So we really don't want to go down that road, right?
No, we don't want to go down that road at all.
No, no, no.
But
Look, I'm more than happy to come on and talk to you about that because I've got some really strong ideas on that one as well. But anyway,
yeah, my company is actually a support coordination company, so
okay, right,
I'm hear you and I
yeah,
feel you, and that's a whole different discussion.
yeah, yeah, absolutely agree.
But it comes back to what you were saying. In those positions, we absolutely need people with disabilities who have the lived experience.
Yeah,
Because at the moment, decisions are being made that not make absolutely no sense to anyone or anything
yeah,
because they don't. Oh, yeah. As I said,
yeah,
we're going
yeah.
to
No, no,
stop that conversation because
no,
I
you're
find
100% right. But that goes across, but that also, that extrapolates across every facet of life. Um, People have like I recently had to be. I was in hospital. I had to have some surgery done. Only minor surgery. But there was a whole bunch of assumptions were made about me based on my disability
without even speaking to you.
without even asking me. Yeah. So it's that sort of thing is like that bias and that perception needs to change. We are, you know, I 100% distinctly remember one of the first people that came and saw me after my amputation. He comes into my room at the hospital and he goes, so now that you're a lower limb amputee, like when are you going to get one of those running blade things? And I said to him, excuse me, what? And I'm like doped up to the eyeballs on morphine for pain, right? Literally, they've just taken my leg off the day before. And I said to him, what? And he goes, yeah, you need to go like and get one of those running blades and go in the Paralympics. I said to him, I'm 45 years old, right? I've just had my leg taken off. I'm way overweight. I'm super unfit. I said, what on earth do I want to go and get a running blade and go running anywhere? You know, but and over the years, I've thought about that a lot. But all it was is his perception.
Yeah.
All he has seen is people with lower limb amputations putting running blades on and going to the Paralympics.
Yeah.
But he hasn't seen the amputee doctor. He hasn't seen the amputee chemist. He hasn't seen the amputee teacher. He hasn't seen the amputee professional musician.
The real people.
Yeah. in real everyday jobs who don't even think about becoming para athletes just because, you know,
Exactly.
and that has been my sort of lifelong journey of trying to get people to understand that just because you've had a lower limb amputation does not mean you have to become an athlete. The tiniest little percentage of lower limb amputees who choose to do that, to go down that road, ever become para athletes. It's such a tiny percentage. I mean, we're talking under 0.5%. And when you're talking about an amputation done, and not obviously not all these are lower limb, but an amputation's done every 7 minutes in Australia. That's
Really?
yeah, that's an awful lot of amputees. So
Absolutely.
you're not, and that I'm saying, as I say, that's not all just lower limbs, but that is that's a big pool of people who want to go become para athletes. Do you know what I mean?
Do you ever find that people, because of your disability, people look at you and assume there's another type of disability that goes along with
Oh,
it, like an
yeah.
intellectual, that they change the way they speak to you
Yep.
or they act with you, or and there's actually nothing wrong with your brain. You've
Yep.
just lost your leg.
Yep. 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 Oh, yeah, 100%. It happens regularly if I because I work pretty much full time, by the weekend I'm absolutely knackered. It takes about 25% more energy to walk and use a prosthetic limb as a single leg. If you go into a double, you're talking up to about 55% more energy that you burn. So by Friday, I'm absolutely done. So I'm very comfortable taking my leg off and jumping in my wheelchair and using my wheelchair over the weekend, to go, pardon me, to go shopping or whatever. And yeah, we've had, well, my wife and I have had a lot of that. Is that's I'll be sitting in my chair and someone will be talking to me via her,
Yeah. Or talking slowly
or
to make
slowing down their
sure
speech.
you
Yeah, yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's I now find it quite humorous, and I will play on it. But to start with, it's really it's quite confronting when people do that. So what does he want? Or and she'll turn around and go, well, he's got a tongue in his head. He can ask for himself. You know what I mean? There's very few things that I need help with, even if I'm in my wheelchair. But if I do, I'm going to ask. And if someone says to me, "Oh, can I help you?" And usually I'll say, "No, I'm fine. Thanks very much for asking anyway." I'm not one of those sort of shouty people unless I'm really, really tired. But then I probably won't go out anyway because I know that I can get grumpy. And that's the last thing that I want to do, is to get grumpy with people who are uneducated and don't really understand how to talk to people with disabilities and stuff like that. Um,
Is it appropriate to ask someone in a wheelchair if they need assistance?
Absolutely, you can ask, but just don't be offended if they say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem, is that people will ask, oh, or then they will assume that they know what you want.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I was sitting, I had a skin infection, so I couldn't wear my leg. My wife sings with the West Australian Symphony Orchestra's chorus, and we were going to a concert at the concert hall in Perth. And we went in on the train, and it was the first time I'd navigated the train in a wheelchair, which is a completely transport. We'll talk about transport in another episode. And I'm more than happy to do that with you as well. I was sitting at this set of traffic lights and in my wheelchair. Now, my wheelchair it has push handles, but they fold down so that it alleviates the temptation for people to grab hold of them and push me. We're sitting at this set of traffic lights waiting to go across the traffic lights, and I'm quite happy to roll myself across. I'm fairly fit now. Um, all of a sudden I start to move and I'm not moving myself. And my wife is standing there next to me, so she's not pushing me. Some bloke had grabbed the back of my chair and was starting to push me into the traffic. That is not cool at all. You just do not do that. So I'm like, oh, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. And he's like, I'm just trying to help. I said, dude, you don't touch my chair.
I was
That's
going to
my,
say, Do you see your chair as an extension of you?
Oh, absolutely. So's my prosthetic. Absolutely.
So by touching your chair or touching your prosthetic, they're touching your body.
Absolutely.
You'd never have done
100%.
normally.
Yeah, they would. I mean, you wouldn't go up to someone in the street and grab hold of them and carry them across the street, right?
No.
So what makes it right to do it for someone with a disability? I might just be sitting there watching the traffic go by. He's got no idea because he never asked me. He
Yeah.
assumed what I was going to be doing, and then tried to help. But that trying to help, then my blood pressure goes skyrockets, and my anger level goes really, really high as well because I don't want people touching my chair. That's the reason I have my chair designed the way it is so that people don't. They see handles, they're going to try and push. Um, and that type of attitude that needs to change. But there's nothing wrong if he stood next to me on the other side from where my wife was and said, "Oh, do you need a hand getting across the road?" I said, "No, I'm good, thanks very much," and we would have gone about our day. But because he didn't ask, and then he touched me, that's basically that's tantamount to assault, really. Because I'd never do that to someone in the street ever if they were walking. So what makes it different when you're in a wheelchair? You
People
know,
feel sorry for you.
yeah. Well, they do, they do, and that's sad. I find that it's dangerous, but I find it really sad as well. You know, um, I'm very mobile in my chair. I'm also very mobile on my prosthetic. I don't treat my prosthetics with any sort of due consideration or care. I don't wrap them up in cotton wool and put them away at night time. They're a device to be used, and they are my mobility. We spend a lot of time talking about how people should interact with us, and airports are a great example. They you go through security. So I travel a lot, obviously for work and stuff, and you go through airport security. Every time you're going to go through airport security as an amputee, you're going to set the machine off. We already think about that. We've already planned how we need to go through this. The challenge then becomes, again, our disabling part is the people on the other side of the security screening who don't know what they're actually doing. They don't know their operating procedures properly, and they don't know how to work with us. I've had many times I've gone through different airports around Australia. "Oh, you need to take your leg off so we can go and X-ray it." And I said, "Over my dead body. That is not going to happen." "Oh, but we need to." I said, "No, you don't. You need to go and look at your SOPs, and you need to get someone who's a supervisor here because that is never going to happen." They actually want to take your leg away, put it through the X-ray machine on its own. Now, could you imagine if they dropped it and it broke?
Yeah.
That is then my mobility is completely gone because I don't have a spare one with me and I don't have my wheelchair with me. What are they going to do then? And it's not like I can go to Bunnings and buy a new one.
So what are the regulations with that?
Um, as for lower limb amputees, they're only allowed to do a pat down, and they're only allowed to do a bomb, like the wand bomb. What do I call? I can't remember what it's called. I call it a bomb check.
Explosives.
Explosive test. Yeah, that's it. And they can do a pat down, but they're not. They can't in Australia. They can't ask you to remove your limb.
Can they in other countries?
Some are. Yeah, there's some countries around the world that do it. But I think the last one that I heard of was Dubai. But they'll sit you right there at the machine so you can see it all the way through. And it's like literally take it off, put it on the conveyor belt, goes through and then comes off and you put it back on. But I think Dubai's one of the only countries in the world that still does that.
So that would be something that you have to then pre-prepare for so that you know where you're going, what you're doing. And as you said, it's not you that's causing the problem. It's the people that don't deal with it every day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I mean, because I wear shorts all the time as well, it's not like I'm trying to hide anything. And I will always point out to the security people at the airport that I've got a prosthetic leg. In Perth, they've just changed them to those like full body X-rays, and it lights up like a Christmas tree. When I go through those, and even people who've had like what they call internal prosthetics, so that would be like shoulders, hips, bone, other bone that has been replaced with metal. They light up like Christmas trees. And they're even harder because you can't actually visually see them. The only way you can see them is through that X-ray. And then they wave the wand over. "You've got metal there." "Yeah, it's a metal prosthetic, an internal prosthetic." Um, I have to plan out all my journeys through airports. Some airports in Australia are better than others, but they're I've just got to give more time. They say, you got to be checking half an hour beforehand. I half an hour sometimes it's just not going to be enough. Depends on what I'm doing and what I'm taking, but I usually allow an hour and a half, which adds a lot of time onto a journey. That
Extra
if I'm flying to Melbourne, that the flight leaves at 6:30 in the morning from Perth, and I got to be at the airport at 5, then I'm going to be up at 3. So and then another, you got the 6-hour flight and the time difference, and
a long
again,
day.
disabling. It becomes very, very disabling as well.
Can you recall a specific moment where you had to dig deep and overcome a challenge?
Wow. Okay. That's a really good question. I don't know. A specific moment.
Were there any times when you just felt like giving up? And what got you through that to the other end?
Not, I can't, I suppose when when I have to have a new leg made, my leg guy is really good. Technical name, he's a prosthetist. And he builds prosthesis, which are artificial limbs. So he's my leg guy, right? Really good bloke, really good at his job. But there has been times when what he's made me just hasn't worked properly. And then I have to draw on all my advocacy skills to be able to go back to him and say, look, this is not working. And we need to make something, because I can't function with a prosthetic that doesn't work for me. And when I say it doesn't work, it might not fit right. It might rub where it shouldn't rub. But then I've got to explain to him what the issue is as well before he can fix it. And we have gone through a few patches where he's just hasn't been able to make a socket that works properly. Um, we and that's hard, because that is my mobility. And if I can't get through that, or can't get a socket that works for me, then I'm not going to be able to maintain the level of activity that I have. Um, that's only a small example. I suppose, having learning that people don't, um, learning that family are going to walk away because they don't understand stuff,
That
and
much
then
good.
trying to work with them to understand it, but they just don't want to understand it. And so ultimately you have to cut ties as well. I've had a bunch of friends who've walked away because, again, same thing, they don't understand at all. And I suppose they can look at it as like, I'm not whole anymore as well. There's some of those have really been really tough, really tough. My Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know. I don't know. You have to have the courage of your conviction and understand that, what you've done, what I've done is permanent. It's not going to come back. So I've got now, then every time if I come across a situation like this, I've got to decide how I'm going to react to it, or am I going to respond to it? I've got way, way, way more friends and extended family, I call my amputee family now, than probably my own immediate family. But we rely on each other for support for that, because we know what each other's been through as well. I'm a big fan of peer support. Really huge fan of peer support. I think that in our world, in the disability world, is way, way, way undervalued. And I'm really, really glad that the federal government has just given out a whole bunch of millions of dollars to some organisations for peer support and community and capacity building. People have got to understand how to and everybody's different. There's no, but I suppose, yeah, from my perspective, it's times like that where I've never thought about giving up, but I have thought about the reasons why. Why do people walk away, and then trying to work out why? I suppose you become a bit of a student of psychology, um, and how that makes you feel as well. And that I will definitely attribute to my psychotherapist, because that was his whole bag. How are you going to feel? And what are you going to feel like? He said to me right from the start, it's going to take you 5 years before you can stand naked in front of a mirror on your prosthetic, and then your mind's going to tell you that's your whole body. And it was just about 4.5 years before I.
Really want to come back to that person because you've mentioned him a few times.
Yeah.
Was he really was he a person in your life that was like a turning point? Was
Oh, definitely,
he
100%.
was someone that, and whether he meant to or not,
No.
he gave you, talk to me about him.
Look, Dale is now 70, 75, 76 years old. Um, he started out life as a pastor in a church, and him and his first wife were on a mission trip, and he was diagnosed with sarcoma, which basically meant he was going to lose his leg. So they took his leg off, and he's what's known as a high above knee. So he's only got a very, very small residual stump on his left leg. But this was nearly, we're going back 45 years. So technology wasn't anywhere near the same then as what we've got now in the way of the prosthetics field. But Dale went on, so he was a pastor, and then he trained as a psychotherapist as well. And he had a whole bunch of different jobs. So we would never have met. I was working for the Disability Employment Service. He was working for an organization called the National Disability Coordination Office, NDCO, which was about doing employment for high school kids. And it just so happened that we ended up sitting down and having lunch together. And I didn't even know he was an amputee. He didn't know anything about me, and that I was even contemplating going down this track. So we just started, having a chat over lunch. I never saw it going where it was going to go. And I don't think he did either. But, we hit it off, and we ended up doing a bunch of work together. He was still doing some pastoring in a couple of churches, and my wife and I are both musicians. So we ended up doing some work with him and his wife, who was a very accomplished organist, so like church organ. She was a music teacher here in Perth, and we just hit it off. And so for the last probably 15 years, we've been in and out of each other's lives, but at a time when we need to be as well. When I need to talk to him, he's always available. He's a person that it doesn't matter what you've done, or it doesn't matter what you're thinking you're going to do, he will still talk to you, and he'll still make time to talk to you. Over the course of the journey, I found out that he was an amputee. He'd been an amputee for a long time. His cancer was the reason why. I found out that his wife had left him when he had the amputation done. So his first wife, because she married a whole man, and he was not a whole man anymore. And this was like really, really early on in his journey. So the whole attitude really from then to where we are now really still hasn't changed a lot, which is really sad to say. But his wife now, she's a very accomplished musician. She's very, very good. She was tapped on the shoulder for a position as head of music of the Canberra Girls' School. So they moved from Perth and went to live in Canberra. I obviously don't see him as often now as I'd like to, but we catch up on Zoom and talk to him every couple of months. But he played a really huge part in my life. And I credit that all the time. If anybody asks, that I'm where I am because of him. Because if I had not had his input and his empathy, his understanding, and his guidance, there's no way I'd be where I am today. Not a chance. I would not even be, we would not be talking at all.
And that's so lovely to hear, because he probably had no expectation or no thought that he would even have that impact
No,
on you.
no, no.
Um,
And I credit him with that all the time. I, I, I've got a few people in my life who are pivotal in my life, given me opportunities, becoming, like acquiring a disability later in life. Um, and they always get kudos because they're the ones they're there. I'm here because of them, you know, giving me opportunities, giving me development, giving me training, helping me to build my capacity, helping me to understand my place in this whole plethora of the physical disability of the disability world, how to navigate it as well, because it's not easy. None of this is easy, and I consider myself to be quite understanding of like all operational guidelines and procedures and blah, 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 but it's overwhelming. So for someone who doesn't have my background and my understanding, navigating disability as like this, it's a beautiful name. It's a struggle. It really is. And I think people have got to, I don't think I was seeking out help, but I was seeking out information. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't do well is there is a plethora of organizations out there who are like peak bodies like mine at Physical Disability Australia, like Limbs for Life, they're there to help people journey, you know, and all they've got to do is be asked. They're not sitting around waiting for phone calls, but they will be more than happy to take a phone call if someone wants to talk,
People can actually reach out
Yeah.
and make the connection.
And and,
In
and
that,
I think
sorry, go on.
no, go, you go. Yeah, no, you
In
go.
that situation, how do people find out what organizations are out there?
Oh, look, there that's actually a really good question because a lot of people don't know. If you Google amputation in Australia, I think Limbs for Life under the SEO comes in at about number three. But once you start working through them, you can find out that stuff. I think it's more about in the amputee world, we have a really strong peer support program that runs Australia wide. And we've got over 350 volunteer peer supporters who we train in-house, and they're all amputees. So we don't let anybody else. It's like any other disabilities come in. We don't train any other disabilities. We only train amputees, and they're our peer support volunteers. So they can work with us, do 1 or 2 visits a year, or they can do 1 or 2 visits a month, or 1 or 2 visits a week, depending on. So we work really closely with allied health professionals in rehab facilities around Australia and get them information packets and fact sheets, contact and stuff, so that then they can pass that on to the patients. Then the patients, if they choose to, they can engage with us. If they don't choose to, that's fine as well. But it's about building that trust and rapport with the allied health professionals and then the rehab facilities, that we become a conduit between the two. I think people sometimes, and especially now, and as a support coordinator, an organization, you understand this, people need to have their capacity built so that they go out there and actively take charge of their own situation.
Absolutely.
I come back to Dale again. Dale, my psychotherapist, amputee friend, mentor, he said to me, it's your journey, you own it. Don't ever let anybody tell you you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. You do what you need to do, and it's your journey. You own it. If you screw it up, that's your fault. But if you win at it, that's also yours. You own that as well. I think that a lot of people, and you alluded to it before, Kate, about I had my leg taken off. I didn't have my brain disengaged. I've still got all the faculties are still here. I've still got my qualifications and I've still got my experience. Just because I might be in a wheelchair doesn't make any difference. Some of the smartest people I know are in wheelchairs. I mean, seriously, it's not, it's, I mean, it really comes down to it, how people perceive it. Um, I don't have any illusions of becoming like a super activist, super advocate. I want to just make sure that my people and the people that I work with, the people that I represent, navigate disability well, and that they understand what they're doing.
That's
You know,
beautiful to hear, because that's just so important. I find
yeah,
a lot of the work that I do, people they have it in them, but they don't have the confidence and they don't have the belief in themselves.
yeah,
So a lot of my work is, supporting people to actually get to that point where they can do it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, if I would have, if someone had said to me 10 years ago that in 10 years' time you're going to be running a national peak organization for people with physical disabilities, I was a jazz musician. I am still a jazz musician. I was teaching in a high school. 10 years later, I now run a national organization. I mean, it's like, hello, no, not going to happen. You know what I mean? Um,
Absolutely. 30 years ago, I was a police officer.
oh, gosh, wow,
If you
far
had have
out.
said to me, here I am running podcasts for people with disabilities, all based on my two children who have autism.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. No. It doesn't compute. I have to pinch myself sometimes. I mean, going from teaching jazz and teaching classroom music to year eight kids who are like 14, 13, 14-year old who really don't even want to be there, to now I'm sitting in meetings with um, NDIS Minister, Minister Rishworth, the head of DSS, the head of the NDIA, all the CEOs from all the different organisations all over Australia. And I'm sitting in this room with them and I'm going, how the hell did this happen?
but it was meant to be.
Well,
Meant to be.
look, I believe we're put here for a reason. I should have I should have not. I should not be here. The infection that I had with this foot thing, that should have killed me. And my doctor, he said that to me straight up. He said, I have no idea how you're still alive. And it was that bad. So look, I take every day. Every day's a new day. Every day's another opportunity to talk to people, to get information from people, to find out what people are doing and find out how I fit into the world and how they can fit into my world as well. Um, in one of the meetings I was with the NDIA, uh, something that's saying, I heard us saying, someone say, I can't remember who said it, but it's now sitting above my computer, my monitor above here. You're never going to get less information by talking to more people.
Yeah. How true.
Yeah. So that's now sort of become my motto. As an interim executive officer of a national body, the only way I'm going to get more information is by talking to more people. And there is absolutely no way that I can get less by talking to more people.
I love that.
It's good, isn't it? It's a real good one. It's a really,
You've
really
said a
good one.
couple of things, and I meant to write them down.
That's right. You've got them recorded,
I
but
can't. I
I'll
have
let you,
recorded it. Yes.
I'll let you use that one, but this one you can't use because I've actually trademarked this one.
Okay.
Uh, I'm all about communication. My forte is people and talking to people and getting people involved in things and stuff. And case in point, we me and my communications manager, we set up a meeting with the NDIA for our community to talk about the new legislation changes. And I don't want to go into that because that's another podcast completely. Never happened in the history of our organisation that the government department had come and spoken to our community. And I wanted that to happen for two reasons. The first one being because I've built a relationship with these folks at the agency, and I want them to come and speak to my people so that my people start to trust them. Because that is the biggest thing we're talking about across everything to do with the disability in Australia at the moment is trust, and the diminishing amount of it with us versus the government, us versus the agency versus the government versus the agency. It's like no one trusts anybody anymore. And I don't think we are going to achieve anything if we don't, to be very honest with you. Trust, I have to trust them that they're going to do the right thing. And I don't mean, as I'm not talking about blind trust and accepting everything they do. I'm talking about they've got our best interests,
Genuine.
mostly, and then we can work with them to make sure that the legislation works for us.
Yep.
That's the thing I'm talking about, trust. So the only way I can do that is get them to come and speak to my people. So we had a meeting, we had an online forum with 4 of the ladies from the stakeholder engagement management team. Never happened before for our organization. And to me, that is what I'm here for, to organize that, to make sure that people are getting information the right way they need it. What they do with that then comes back to the other part of our organization, is helping build people to build their capacity. We're not an advocacy organization. We're not funded to do advocacy, and neither is Limbs for Life. I'm talking Physical Disability Australia is not funded to do advocacy. There's obviously a bunch of other organizations out there who are, but we will funnel them to that. But we use our community strength of being subject matter experts. So I can guarantee you that if you came to me with a question about someone who needed a wheelchair of this particular brand, this particular size, I'm going to find someone within our community who's got one somewhere.
That sounds to me like your motto is bringing people together.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I die tomorrow, I'm going to die happy that I've actually achieved something with that. I've built a really good relationship with an organizational reputation with the agency, with DSS, which are our funding bodies, and I'm quite open with that. We have a relationship where I can question on behalf of my community and not feel like that they're going to say, no, we're going to pull your funding because we don't like the way that you do things. So that's a respect and a trust relationship as well. But that comes with, and that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort on my part to make sure that that relationship's there. But as I said, speaking to more people is not going to give me less information. It's going to give me more. And the more people I can speak to and the more people I can engage with, the more understanding, and then how can I actually make our community stronger as well. Ties it all back into my spider webs, because that's about our community being strong. And the navigating disability is, that I love that. I love that as a title, because it's so powerful that it is a navigation, and you do have to learn how to do it. I don't know how many listeners you've got to this podcast, but look, if anybody's got physical disability and they want to reach out to us, feel free. Absolutely, 100%. That's what we're here for. If you want to have a chat, feel free. That's what we're here for. That's how we exist for, to make sure that people can navigate what they need to. I spend a lot of my time explaining to our funding bodies that the price of our equipment, our AT, which is our mobility devices, our legs, our arms, all that sort of stuff, just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. But if we don't have that stuff, if it's not approved in a timely way, and I'm sure as a support coordinator, you understand exactly what I'm saying, then our people can't go out there and work because they're being hindered by a process. And it's that navigating disability, because disability is a process. It's a way. It's not just a physical thing. It's an emotional thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's a financial thing. But when all the ducks are in a row, the navigation becomes easier. But it's getting to that point of going, okay, how do we get through there? And with all the changes and stuff, and so the changes are so fast that the navigation part becomes really murky as well.
It's all encompassing.
Yeah, yeah, and nothing stands alone.
No.
As well. AT, assistive technology, capacity building, core supports, none of that stands alone. Everything has to be in the right to make the whole process work properly. It's funny, I was talking with my comms manager before she went on leave a couple of days ago, and we were talking about siloing.
Yep.
And how it is in the amputee community, and this is just the amputee community, right? We have a hierarchy of amputation. So for someone who's a lower limb like me, a single below knee amputee, in our community is referred to like as a paper cut. So it's only just like it's a really minor thing. And
Yep.
then we go all the way up the hierarchy to quad amputees. So both arms, both legs, of which there is quite a few of them in Australia. So they're like the super amputee. And we have this hierarchy, but then it gets siloed as well. So it's really interesting to see how people work with that to go, okay, well, just for assistive technology is a silo, capacity building, and then those core supports and like what you need at home and personal care and stuff like that. And getting to me, it should all be encompassing, not like these three separate things and trying to work out how, because if the assistive technology doesn't work, I can't wear my leg, then I'm going to need to go jump into my core supports and use my core supports more because I'm going to need more support at home because I can't walk. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's weird, hey?
100%. It's
It's navigating, right?
navigating everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's almost like you have to have a degree in like NDIS speak and DSS speak to actually make this work properly. Um, and I look, there's a whole bunch of other stuff we could go into, but I don't want to because it's not about that. But I suppose from from my perspective is very much engaging community and talking to people and breaking down barriers, um, addressing stigma and understanding and addressing the biases and perceptions of people and how people view, I mean, we don't know each other. If you didn't know I was an amputee and I didn't show you my prosthetic, you wouldn't have a clue, would you?
I have no idea.
If we met in the street and I was wearing long pants, you wouldn't know because I walk better than most people do with two legs.
Yep.
So, you know,
And
um,
that's what this is all about,
yeah,
is to trying to, destigmatize.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look, I always say to people, mate, you're not going to catch it. It's not the dreaded amputee disease that you can catch. So, you know, I'm safe to talk to. I practice very strong health. When I'm out, I wear a mask all the time. Not that I'm vulnerable, but I have a lot of my community who are,
Yeah.
and I stand in solidarity with them. If that they, COVID's but was really tough on a lot of our people, and it still is. It's not gone; it's still there. Any work that I do in rehab facilities is there in hospitals. So I gotta make sure that I'm protecting myself and protecting other people. And I've been questioned about that all the time. Why you wear a mask? As I'm protecting myself. I said, if you don't want to, that's fine. It's up to you, mate. But don't question my choices just because you don't understand what I do. You know, um, touch wood. I haven't had COVID,
No,
so
either have I.
one of the I mean, and that's not through
Unless I
not
don't know about it, but
well, yeah, there's that too. But I mean, my wife's had it twice, and we live in the same house, and I never got it. So anyway,
and
it's
that's a whole nother podcast as well.
absolutely,
I need to wrap up.
yeah, that's cool. No worries.
I've had the most amazing time today with you, Andrew. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. More than happy to speak to anybody that would like to be involved and give, their take on navigating disability and so forth. So if you have anyone, please let me know.
I will.
Um,
Absolutely.
we've loved sharing today's show with you, and we hope our
Thank you.
intention to make a difference is reaching through the airwaves to you and your loved ones. Feel free to check out the show notes for any links you need to stay connected to Andrew. Go to our Facebook page to engage with us at facebook.com/navigating disability. And wherever you're listening or watching this show, please give us a thumbs up, a heart, or 5-star rating. Share this show with as many people as you can, and let's make this world of disability a better place, one conversation at a time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kate.